Plainfield, New Jersey, one of the most unique towns anywhere in America. There are very few places left where 3 and 4 generations of a family have stayed, where a father, a mother occasionally, a brother, a sister, sometimes uncles, aunts, have gone to the same school system. Plainfield, New Jersey, and Plainfield High School is still that place. Today we're fortunate to have as our guest the legendary Marcia Foster. Marcia is the only daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Henry Foster Sr., who we'll talk about a little later in the show. And Marcia is one of the greatest athletes to ever don a Cardinal uniform. Marcia, tell us a little bit about your past as an athlete, the schools you attended, and then we'll get into some history of your family.
First of all, thank you so much, Martin, for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. My family bleeds Plainfield, always has. I was so fortunate to be raised in, when we talk about a village raising a child, that was my dad's phone message. It takes a village to raise a child. I was so fortunate to grow up in this neighborhood and have the experiences that I did. With not just my family, but all families looking out for me. So we moved from 3rd Street in Plainfield to where we are now, St. Nicholas Boulevard, when I was 3. So I spent my time growing up, my formative years in this neighborhood. Went to Emerson School, where I actually, that's where I met a rival of mine, Pamela Holmes, who went to Union Catholic in basketball, on the basketball court when we were 10 years old. We just happened to meet there. And it was another brown girl playing basketball. And I can talk, she did so much for me because of her experience at Union Catholic and private schools. She had such pride in who she was. We were able to walk through Fanwood, Scotch Plains, and have people call us out of our name and still keep going because of the strength of her and her giving that to me of who we were, even as young people. So I went to Emerson School, which was awesome, and then was bused to Cook School. I think that was a process of integration in the Plainfield school systems, and we were bused over to Cook School, which was a wonderful experience. I went there from 1st through 5th grade, and then went back to Emerson School after that.
Most people don't know, Marcia, that the reason busing happened in Plainfield is there was a Supreme Court case in Plainfield called Booker versus the Board of Education.
Yeah.
And Mr. Booker, who's still with us today, Mr. Booker is a member of the Plainfield High School Hall of Fame. He sued the Plainfield Public Schools and made it all the way to the Supreme Court to desegregate what were then segregated schools in the city of Plainfield. And that's where the busing came out of. So many years after Brown versus the Board of Education, the Supreme Court case that was supposed to desegregate schools, you still had segregation across the country, especially in the Northeast. So I wanted to just steal your thunder for a second to give you a little background on where the busing came from.
Right, which was, and you don't know that as a kid. You just know now you're catching a bus to school and you're going someplace else when you used to walk to school, on down the road. But Cook School was good for me. I met a lot of friends, white and black, that I would have for the rest of my teenage years, even though some of them went on to different schools and didn't go to Plainfield High School. But Cook School was the home of the fishing derby, right? And I'll never forget, like every year, waiting for the fishing derby. It was also a place where my mom, she was head of the fair that went on it. She was a part of the PTA. And so from my earliest time, I remember my mom being kind of everywhere I was. My mom and my dad, obviously my dad was in administration in school, so I was always with him. But my mom was very instrumental. She was always a chaperone, always on the bus with us. And Cook School was the place where I started to experience different games and sports. And I played everything until something captured my heart. I was allowed to do that. And I think so much, my parents, especially my mom, did not grow up in a time where girls were able to do to participate in different sports and different activities. So whatever I wanted to do, I was allowed to do. I wanted to join the swim team when I was in 5th grade because Holly Whiteside, who I went to school with, had an orange jacket. I wanted that orange jacket. So I joined the swim team. I became a national level swimmer, went to nationals several years. I wanted to play football. My mom told me I couldn't play football. Poplar was the tryouts were at Silent Field up the street. She told me you can't play. They don't let girls play. But she let me put on shoulder pads and walk up there. And I don't remember who it was, but he's like, Little Foster. And you gotta go home. You know who else I met at Silent Field during my younger years, and I would go there for recreation. It was instrumental in me having opportunities as a young girl playing. It was Kevin Bowden. He let me play on the baseball team. He included me in all the activities that happened. He didn't say no because you're a girl, you can't play. He was like, girl, you can do some stuff. Come on out here.
Two things, Marcia. Many people don't remember Kevin Bowden because his life ended tragically
Yes, it did.
in Washington, D.C. while he was off one weekend. He played at the University of Virginia. He was a sophomore. He got a pinched nerve from a tackling drill in practice, missed the game, visited his grandmother, and unfortunately he was murdered in Washington, D.C. Still one of the greatest tragedies in my lifetime in Plainville. Kevin was the salutatorian of Plainville High School at a time when many African Americans may have achieved that, but were not awarded it by the Plainville Public Schools and schools across the country. There was a bias. Kevin, I believe, had he lived, would have been Barack Obama before Barack Obama was born. Highly intelligent, great athlete, great human being, and in his short years, he impacted so many people in Plainville who over 40 years after his death still discuss him on a regular basis. You touched on two other areas I'd like to talk about a little more. If I'm not mistaken, you swam at the Girls Y.
I did.
And if I'm not mistaken, the name of that team was the Dolphins?
Yes. You know more than me. Yeah.
And they were a nationally ranked team, which often had an African American or two on the team. Most people don't realize that.
Yes.
At a time when that was not common, they competed nationally. I'm sure that the records may have been misplaced and or lost with the closing of the YWCA, but what a great program. We even were fortunate enough to have a cousin, Pat Hamilton, who competed on those teams, and she was a great swimmer also. You also talk about your mother. We were fortunate because we went to church together at St. Mark's Episcopal Church to know your mother before we knew ourselves. But your mother touched a lot of people. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other community work that she did? I know she was instrumental in the Metronomes, which provided scholarships to young ladies, and several other clubs and organizations.
Well, like I said, first she was involved in every school activity that there was. She was invested not just in my life and my brother's lives, but the lives of all young people. That energy of service was present in our home. Something I know your family experiences from you. So my mother led the Brownies, led the Girl Scouts, like you talked about. She was in the Metronomes. One of the most special things about my mother, besides her opening the door so I had opportunities as a young woman to participate in whatever I wanted to, was, a lot of people don't know this, she was super creative, right? And so I would come home sometimes during, like, if it was a Christmas festival that the high school was going to host, a Christmas fair, and my classmates that I really didn't, we said hey and stuff, but I didn't really, hang out, playing ball and all that. They'd be here in the house creating stuff, making stuff for, the fair. I know this is before my time, but my godparents, Camille and Augie Grace, and the Burches that lived in Plainville were a part of my mother's youth group. Mm-hmm. And she was only a few years older than them, and she was running things. My mom also, she was a challenger. She stood for things. She wasn't afraid that when she didn't think things were as they should be, she'd stand up and fight. I can remember my dad was telling me stories about her in St. Mark's. She didn't like something when Father Smith was in the church, so she was gonna like boycott until stuff was changed. But there were so many young women, friends of my brothers, friends of mine, weddings that my mom did all of the flowers, everything for, and usually without cost, because it was just something that she did.
One of the reflections I have of your mother is that throughout my life I've created names for people. We're raised not to call people names, but I've always called people names. But they were good names. And I used to call your mother, many people may not know this, but I used to call your mother Double C. Because I was so proud of my last name, Cox, that I would try to give people names that had a C to start as the first letter. So I always thought that your mother was a champion of children. And there aren't many people that I've ever met in the city of Plainfield who were champions for children. I don't know that I ever witnessed or heard someone say that your mother said no, which was what a gift for the community. Talk a little bit about the other family members. Obviously, I'm aware of who your other family members are, your two brothers, but talk a little bit about your brothers, if you would.
So, my older brother, he was in Australia right now. He went over there to play basketball and stayed there. I followed him along, right? I followed him around. Now, when he was younger, that wasn't something that he was really fond of, but because I'm 2 years younger than him, but because he knew I wanted to play, it was like as long as I kind of stayed in my little square and didn't, because I was always challenging people, right? I challenged the boys. As long as I didn't talk too much, he was okay. I think sometimes he was ready to pop me in the head. But a great story, we were driving cross country. We drove cross country 4 times to visit my dad's parents. They moved to California when I was 10. So we took 4 cross country trips. And we were in Rapid City, South Dakota. And we had stopped, and we got in a motel. And it was early in the day, I remember, and we traveled with a basketball. And I believe I was around 14, my brother was 16 or 13, 15. And we went out for the day we went to find a court. And so we were gone like all day. We found a court and these guys were playing, all white guys playing. And we just, we did the We Got Next and we played all day. And my dad ended up, all of a sudden we saw our dad like it was in the evening, he was at the fence. Because he had gotten worried, because we had been gone all day long. And it's one of the strongest, most powerful lessons about what sport does, and my brother helped provide this opportunity for me. It didn't matter. We went to a court in Rapid City, South Dakota, and we could hoop. So it was on. Nobody cared. It was like we were there all day, enjoying, laughing, playing some ball. My brother, he was the leader as far as sports. He was not easy on me, which was good. When I played, he would foul me hard, he'd throw my shot, he'd talk to me, made me better. So my brother was a challenge. Whatever he did, I wanted to do. My younger brother and I have a different bond. He swam like me, and he's a lot like my mom, and I'm a lot like both of them. But it was like the Black Brady Bunch, Martin. So many good memories I have of our family traveling across the country or traveling to Indiana. So my brothers we were all unique, but everybody is infused with the need to serve.
Right.
And so, like my brother was a part of everything, my younger brother was part of everything we did because he was 4 years younger, so he got drugged along. So he appreciates the Brownies and the Girl Scouts. He came to all of my games. He watches women's basketball. He's been out to California to watch my teams play. So we're the closeness we have, even though we're far apart, that bond we have is.
Many people, Marcia, would falsely believe that all of your athleticism came from Henry Jr., as you just discussed, getting you to be tougher, getting you to play, getting you to not be a girl. You could get away saying that in the 70s. You certainly can't say that today.
Right.
Or some people would say, your father, who was an All-American in track, who played the game of basketball. I think your father was in his 50s and they were still playing in the over 30 league, where Seth Hicks, I think, once scored 67 points in a game I watched. And Seth Hicks never saw a shot he didn't want to take, even if he was at the opposite foul line. And he was shooting, 50 plus feet away. But most people may not know that your grandmother, your father's mother, at the age of 95, set the world record for speed walking across the Golden Gate Bridge. Please talk a little bit about your grandmother.
So my grandmother didn't drive. My grandmother walked everywhere, right? And she was, for her time especially, she was born in 1909, I believe. For her time, she was tall. She was about 5'9", slim. But she walked everywhere in California. She moved to California. They moved to California when I was 10 years old. And she belonged to a senior group. And especially after my grandfather passed away, she started doing all of the activities that the seniors did. And so they started to walk across the Golden Gate Bridge. So it's not just that she could walk because she walked all the time and she was fit. My grandmother walked up steps. I remember we had her 100th birthday party, and we walked up the steps. We weren't waiting for the elevator, It wasn't just that she could walk them. My grandmother was competitive. My grandmother did not like to lose. She grew up in a time where she's very light, a time when some people could pass, and the discrimination and hate that she felt for being who she was at that time. She carried a lot of fury in her from those early years, and the competitiveness. Because she didn't play sports when she was younger. That wasn't a route that was available for women at her time, girls at her time. So the walking, that became her challenge, and she was trying to kick people's butt every time she did the Golden Gate Bridge. So yeah, she was featured. I did a really nice article on her. She set the world record for the time. I'm not sure what the time is, but yeah, there's a lot of pride associated with that.
One of my favorite stories of your grandmother is, for those who may not have known her, she was a quiet leader. So for those that weren't close, that weren't in a circle. And one time I had the occasion, I don't recall the event, where there was a conversation that I didn't participate in, I witnessed, I heard, where your grandmother was talking about the rivalry / friendship of Milt Campbell and your dad. And she said to the group of us, of which I think Artie Smallwood was in the circle at that time, she said, I would always say to Henry, or Hank, I think she called him, I would always say to Hank, why don't you just run faster? Why can't you beat that boy? And that's a sign of how competitive your grandmother was. Most people don't know that your father, Henry Foster Sr., at that time he was just Henry Foster, he didn't have children, and Milt Campbell Sr., again, the senior wasn't there, he didn't have a son named Bill at that time, to my knowledge, are the only time in the history of the country that in high school track, they won a national title in New York City, I believe at Madison Square Garden, but it may have been at the Armory, I'll have to check my records. But they won a national title in the early 50s, and they only took 2 guys on the train. They took your father and Mr. Foster. And there were teams that had 20 and 30 students that were eligible to participate in that meet. They took 2 guys and won a national title.
Right.
And that's something that we need to celebrate. The Alumni Association needs to do a better job of acknowledging that and getting it on the walls at Plainfield High School. And that's our project for 2020/21 school year, because we've acknowledged so many other great athletic accomplishments, but that's certainly one of the best. Marcia, as a child, I remember your father coaching Little League Baseball.
Right.
And I think one year, for whatever reason, maybe the fee was $3 and parents couldn't afford it. It was very affordable to today's times, but you don't know what parents' economics were, because children didn't get in adults' business back then. But your father tells me, and I was never a baseball player, to come to baseball practice, and it was at Silos Field. And you were there. And I told this story at the Hall of Fame, and you were just hitting balls, and I'm sure that those of us over there, guys, were saying, what's Marcia doing hitting the ball? And legend would have it, and I may be incorrect on this, you either hit the ball to the fence from Garfield to Netherwood, or you hit the ball out of the fence. And I was going to bat behind you. Your father didn't have enough people for batting practice. I don't think it was tryouts, because I don't think anybody got cut back then. But it was the formation of the team, one of the first few practices. So after you hit the ball, all the boys are stunned, because we weren't amazed. We didn't have an appreciation for female athletes then, but we were stunned. Your father says, "Cox, get up." And I remember saying something to the effect to your father, "Why would I hit a baseball behind Marcia? I'm obviously not a baseball player, and I'm not going to be embarrassed, because I've always had a high level of self-esteem, and I know what I can do and what I can't do." So after leaving Little League, you tried all kinds of sports as a youth. You came from an athletic family. Your parents were influential in your life. You lived in a neighborhood filled with great athletes and great athletic families, including Jeffrey Upperman, including the Upperman family. Most people don't realize that Mrs. Upperman was actually part of the first Girl Scout troop that was black in Plainfield, and that was in 1948. I will get you a copy of that document. I've posted on Facebook pretty often. But after your combination of Emerson, Cook, Emerson for the 5th grade, you went to Maxon and excelled. But then you came to Plainfield High School shortly after the passage of Title IX legislation. Where Plainfield, most people don't realize, Plainfield had a girls basketball team, 6-on-6, 3 on a side. Most people don't know anything about 6-on-6 girls basketball, which I believe is still played in Iowa to this day in some of the schools. But Plainfield High School actually had girls basketball teams in the 20s and in the 30s, but most people don't know that. They only played a few towns, because most towns didn't emphasize allowing girls to compete athletically. Okay, and it was really a step above intramurals. It wasn't totally recognized under the NJSIA or any of the other governing bodies, and a lot of girls' athletics was considered to be AAU in nature. So, amateur athletics. You came to Plainfield High School a couple of years after Title IX legislation in 1973. And Ben Maggio really was ahead of his time in the coaches that he picked. Sometimes by happenstance, sometimes by dumb luck, and sometimes by just his feel. And Harry Lambert was hired as the girls' basketball coach. He didn't have a lot of history as a basketball person, and I'll let you give your opinion in a second, but Harry Lambert went on to lead the Plainfield Cardinals to 6 straight Union County titles, and that has not been matched in the 40-plus years of girls basketball in Union County, where the champion was awarded, Union County tournament. But you played, and ultimately when you finished your career at Plainfield High School, you went 79-11 over 4 years, each year improving upon the success, obviously capturing 2 Union County titles, the first 2 of 6. You left Plainfield High School with 1,330 points, a record which stood until 2014, 34 years. You also left with over 1,000 rebounds. Girls' records were not accurately kept in the early 1970s because they just weren't. People weren't prepared, or it was their stance against female athletics and athletes. But we didn't do a good job in Plainfield. We do a little better job today of keeping those records. And that's not a knock against anyone. Times change. But talk a little bit about your 4 years at Plainfield High School, playing for the Lady Cardinals, which were one of the most dominant teams in the state of New Jersey during your 4 years.
So let me back up just a little bit. You talked about like this neighborhood that I grew up in, the athletes in this neighborhood. A lot of older guys too that would come and hoop, and because I think of the East Coast compared to the West Coast. There's so many people here that just hoop. You can work in a grocery store and you can come hoop, afterwards. It doesn't matter. It's just, basketball is a part of you. The pole, the light pole that's still out on the corner still has nails in it from when we used to have a backboard out there. And every year, the guys would come out, my brother would lead that group, and they make sure there was a new rim, a new net up. And that's how I became a baller out here, because you had to score to stay on the court playing 21. If the net wasn't all the way, if it had gotten ripped or something, the ball would go through it, it would go all the way down the street. So I learned how to play angles, right? So I learned how to play out on the corner. At Maxon, you couldn't play as a sixth grade. So I was all ready to play. I was trying to try out there. Again, no, little Foster, you need to wait your turn. Just an aside, and I'll get into my time at Plainfield High School and playing basketball there, which was super special. My dad was in the reserves, and he worked at Camp Kilmer and ran the recreation program. And that's where...
At Job Corps?
Yeah, at Job Corps. And I would get to go, once a month, I get to go, because my mother would let me go. The other time it was something that my dad did with my brother. But I would beg to go. And my dad, he had these great stories. He would take me there and the women there that were running programs, he would leave me with them. He said, your mother knew where you were. My dad was they didn't even know. She was he would just say, bring her back
safely.
Yeah, bring her back in the evening. I loved it there though. And I that's where I started shooting on the little side baskets when my dad and the guys would run at the end.
Do you remember that old gym?
I do.
Oh.
I do. I loved it because I had that little side basket and I could stay out of the way and I would,
I don't even believe there was heat in that building. It was pretty bad, pretty drafty.
Also, Ernie Hoppy at Maxon, he was the principal of Maxon, Mr. Hoppy, when I was there, and he was the shot doctor, the early shot doctor. He would sit me off on the side basket while guys from Syracuse and both the guys were down running in the gym, and I would just get to shoot on the basket. And every now and then he'd say sister, because sister, is my nickname, and my dad called me a term of familiarity from our past. He would say, touch the rim, grab the rim, just to show the guys, And so even though I knew we didn't have all the opportunities that guys had, I had opportunities. And I think a lot of times, just in my reflection of what it was like growing up to be a female in a time before Title IX passed and then Title IX did pass, that it was different in black communities. Because we didn't have opportunities that other people had anyway. So I feel like I was poured into by black men to give me the opportunity to do stuff. That's why I named Kevin Bowie. Kevin Bowie was very instrumental in me having confidence to step out and do whatever. He gave that to me. My dad, he gave that to me. Gave me opportunities to come on out here, Little League. I played Little League first year girls could play Little League. And that was the last year I could play Little League. Not that I was great. I love sports though, so whatever it was. Plainfield High School, we know what I mean.
Before you go into Plainfield High School, there's two things I want to touch on. Since most people don't know what it is to have a rim connected to a pole, the pole doesn't arc like you see on a basketball.
Right.
The pole is in cement, part of a curb often or sidewalk area,
right.
And it doesn't give. So if someone fouls you, you wore the pole did not wear you.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing. So it wasn't safe athletic facilities like you have today, rubberized floors, specialization of athletes, indoor for everything. But you really learned the game and you learned safety as a result of the unsafe conditions you played in. The second thing is Ernie Hobby, former principal at Emerson School, longtime educator in the Plainfield Public Schools, proud father of several great athletes that played basketball. Ernie Hobby, during his time at Emerson and Maxon, would open the gyms.
Yes.
And Ernie Hobby was so good at what he did, as you touched on, he was known as the shot doctor. When Syracuse played for the national title, they had a very low shooting percentage. Jim Boeheim brought him in to teach his kids how to shoot free throws. Because Ernie Hobby could shoot underhand, overhand, free throws, half court, mid court, layups.
Actually played for her summer teams, which was pretty cool. But I was drafted by the New Jersey franchise of whatever league there was at the time. And that league, Jersey folded before it started. So I went to Houston to try to play, and that didn't work out. And that's when I ended up going to California. Again, California has been a constant throughout. Like, I wanted to be there because we spent so much time there, and it's beautiful there, right? So that called my name. So I spent a year here substitute teaching. I substitute taught in Newark. Good friend of mine, of my family's, the Summers, James Summers, his wife, Betty Summers, she worked in the Newark school system. She was an art teacher. She was able to give me an opportunity to, be at school all the time, substitute all the time. So that was pretty cool. And then I moved to California.
Upon arriving in California, your all-time destination location.
Yes, apparently.
Some things are preordained, I think, in our birth. What did you do early in your career, and then discuss what other doors opened for you?
Okay, so first of all, you don't understand. I think kids understand more now that having a degree is so important, right? Because you're still going to struggle with your opportunities. It's the who you know. So the first thing that happened to me in California was that I realized that I didn't know anybody besides my uncle. So getting started was very difficult out there. I tell kids that all of the time, like, go to school where you kind of want to be, where you can have roots and you have networks, because it makes it so much easier. So I went to California at 22 and had to basically start all over again, because people didn't know Henry Foster, they didn't know Sharon Foster, they didn't know the legacy of Plainfield and the Village Raising a Child. They didn't understand where I was in California. So I had to begin again. And it wasn't easy. My first few years in California, it was challenging going from job. I had a cleaning business, Sun Company Cleaning. We rise with the sun to get the job done. Because I know how to clean, because my mom kept cleaning out. So I was hustling, and somebody asked me if I knew somebody who could clean an apartment. And I was like, I could do it. I was working as a recreation coordinator. And because my hours were 2 to 10, I started working, doing some stuff. Then I got a real estate contract and was doing real estate down in Newport Beach, California, which is really nice. I'd do stuff, rentals, and then I'd go swim, right? And I had people ask me at that time, like, you have a college degree, I'm like, And I always ascribe to the philosophy, if you're going to do something, you do it well, like Martin Luther King. If you're a janitor, you be the best janitor.
Absolutely.
You could be. And I knew I wasn't going to stay there. What happened? Cleaning gave me the opportunity to start coaching. So I started coaching. I was where I lived in Costa Mesa, California, which is in Southern California, not far from Disneyland. I was running, and I heard a basketball bouncing in this gym, and I looked in the gym, and women were playing. And so I asked them what was going on. It was a league, but then nobody needed anybody. Again, they don't know me, right? So they're like, they don't know, we have our team. So I kept coming back. I ended up on this team that was terrible, which was fine. And then I ended up on playing with a really good team. And this league, so there's no pro. This league is a tough league. Then another league opens up in the Long Beach area, and that league is drawing people from all over, and it's a big time league. So that was really fun. And that's how I got to know a lot of people out there, through playing in this league. And that league, one of the players had a bag and it said Modern Day Girls Basketball. Modern Day is a powerhouse out in California. I said, do you coach? She said, are you looking for a job? And I was like, yeah. I'm looking for a job. And it was a JV job, and that's how I started coaching. I coached JV at Modern Day High School. We practiced on the outdoor courts. Then I was the head coach at Garden Grove High School. I was at a clinic listening to Dean Smith speak. And a guy came up to me and he said, we're looking for a coach at Garden Grove High School. And so I applied for the job. I got that job. I coached there for 4 years. Then I wanted to try college. I was a a restricted earnings position at Arizona State. So I got that. And I got that because one of the assistant coaches talked to Jen DiMaggio's sister.
Wow.
Yes, and she was able to vouch for me and say I was good people. And that's how I got that job. And then Arizona State, I went to Cal Poly after that. The head coach, the business Division I head coach get fired. I went to Division I. I moved to Cal Poly from there, and San Luis Obispo is a beautiful place to live. But I was longing for the sound of buses and some noise, because if you've been on the Central Coast of California, it's absolutely beautiful. But there's nothing out there but the school and stuff. So I was there for 6 years. Coached a year at Caltech. Was the head coach. That was interesting. I had people who were discovering planets who couldn't make a layup, but nonetheless, I coached there for a year. That was a good experience for me because it taught me that I had to redefine winning, because I have these brilliant women playing for me that are terrible. One was pretty good. ADU, she was good. These women are the top level, going to be top level scientists in our world, and so I had to redefine winning. If we ran a play right, if we won,
that was a victory.
It was a victory. We won a half against one of our league teams. We celebrated like we won a national championship. Oh no, that's right. It taught me how to redefine winning though. Like what, you win little things, and if you win little things, eventually the big things take care of themselves. We were never going to win games there, but that wasn't the point. The point was just, appreciating, and that's from here. That's from my roots.
Absolutely.
That part of it, like how to get the best out of young people, knowing that not everybody is gonna go on and continue to play. Some people, it's just a stop along the way. But my parents infused me with the need to care, and the need for service. It's in me. So I took that into my coaching. After Caltech, I went back to Division I. I was an assistant coach at Cal State Fullerton, then I became the head coach at Cal State Fullerton, and then experienced a tragedy there, which changed things. A new athletic director and my assistant coach and her fiance being murdered by that changed things for me. Really made me pause and take a step back, and I was riding my beach I was retired. I was riding my bike along the beach in Long Beach, and somebody told me that Fullerton College, which was right down the street from Cal State Fullerton, where I was the head coach, had opened up. And I never thought about coaching community college. Didn't think more or less of it wasn't the point, and just that's not where I was. But now I'm a tenured instructor there. I teach.
How many years have you been at?
I've been there 7, 2 part-time, and then 5. This was my 5th year. I got tenure last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I absolutely love teaching. I still coach. Still love coaching. It's getting ready to be time to pass that on to the younger ones, and to become a coach of coaches.
So what do you teach now?
I teach sports management, intro to kinesiology, sports and society.
How many students at the school?
24,000. Yes. So it's pretty cool. Community college, the community college system in California, it was free at one point. It's free to go to our school again now. You can go to school free for 2 years. You just have to take 12 units and maintain a 2.0 GPA, and they pay for school.
What happens, because a lot of community colleges on the East Coast don't have dorms.
Right. We do not have dorms, so that makes it challenging for recruiting and basketball. But California Community College is its own system. We don't play in the national JUCO. Right. So it's just California Community College. Yeah.
Marsha, you've given us one of the best interviews that I've ever been able to be a part of. And everything I do is a partnership, because I believe that we can all make a difference in the world, and certainly that to whom much is given, much is required. As we work towards closing out this interview, is there anything that we may have missed that you'd like to impart on anyone in our audience who may watch this video perpetually? Because the internet today gives a life sometimes even beyond our physical being.
Right.
So is there something, some nugget of knowledge you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think I've said it throughout the interview, but it takes a village to raise a child. And what that means, it's different at different points of your life. When you're a child and the village is raising you, that's a bit annoying, right? Because you don't understand the power of people pouring into you from all over, you know. And it's different today because a lot of people don't want people telling their children what to do. And I grew up in a time where if I was up the street acting up, my mother knew before I got home, kind of thing, because people were making sure. And especially for a young black woman, there were things you needed to do to stay safe, right? To not get in trouble, and to thrive. So we have to continue to pour into our youth, into our people. And our people isn't just black people, although that's extremely important and the most important, but it's all kids. Like, we have such a responsibility, and I got that from my parents. I got, like, you know, white guys hooping, black guys hooping, we all hoop. White girls, black girls, we are all one. And we forget that. Sometimes it's easy to forget that, especially like the state of the world today. We're being reminded how inequitable it is. My parents gave me the strength to know and the belief that we all are one. We are all one. That and to serve. There's nothing greater than service, and you not service you get paid for, and that's why I have so much respect for you, because you have served our community. Because some of us have to go away, right? Some of us go away, but I took Plainfield to California with me. You know, you're one of those people that you have stayed, and you're a reason. You're like the time capsule, man. You're a time capsule.
Hope nobody seals me up.
No, you are doing such important work for our community, and it's service, you know. And so that's it. I was a very blessed young woman growing up. But both my parents were gone now, and my father just passed away. The legacy is so strong within me from them, and it's my responsibility to continue to pass that on. But it's all of our responsibilities to like look out for one another, to teach each other, to help each other to grow and be the best we can be, and challenge each other.
Well, Marcia, as we close out this interview, there's a couple of observations that I'd like to make. One is, on behalf of the Plainfield High School Alumni Association and the Plainfield High School Alumni Association Hall of Fame, the Plainfield community, because this interview will be given to the Plainfield Public Library Local History Department, so they will have a digital copy of this infinitum, indefinitely. They have a climate control room, and we donate many things to the Plainfield Public Library. You and your brothers have blessed us with the donation of many yearbooks, prom glasses, and some PHS class of 53 photos from some of their reunions. Those things are going to become a part of it'll be the Henry Foster Senior Collection at the Plainfield Public Library.
That's awesome.
So there may be one or two items that are duplicate that we've already donated to the Plainfield Public Library, because since 1978, I believe I've donated hundreds of items. I know we've donated hundreds of items to the Plainfield Public Library, and we now have yearbooks from approximately 1902 up till 2019. We didn't get the one from 2020 yet.
Awesome.
So now people who come home to Plainfield, or what may have been their parents, their brothers, their uncles and aunts, may have even been their previous home, come home, they can have a history through the public schools. And now we're starting to get some stuff from Hartridge, from Wardlaw, St. Mary's. So we're trying to really build an archives that people will be able to go back and reflect on their journey, even if it's just their grandparents or their parents' journey. So that's one of the few things I'd like to say. But on behalf of the Alumni Association, on behalf of Thirst for Knowledge, which our belief is that education is a life-altering experience, your interview today will alter lives. You will show people that there's ways out of seemingly positions where there is no way out. So you're going to give people hope. You're going to get people, have people inspired. On behalf of my son Tristan Cox, who's providing all the video services, we thank him. He's also a Plainville High School alumnus, and as you are, he's a Seton Hall grad. He got his doctorate from Seton Hall. But we just want to thank you, Marcia. Know that for as long as I have breath in my body, if there's something you need, call me. Might not get a call right back. Sometimes I listen to the message and I go, really? Is that what I want to do? But all sincerity, that we will do anything we can do to continue to celebrate the legacy of the Foster family. With the passing of your father, you have blessed my sons and I, which we won't touch in this interview, with a unique opportunity to help your father during this transition. And we are grateful for that because you've given us something that my father had given to me, and now I've been able to share with my sons. That will remain with all of us for the balance of our days. There is no doubt of that. But I want to thank you one more time, and I know I've said it many times. Thank you for who you are. And in closing, the Plainville High School Alumni Association and Hall of Fame is proud to have captured this interview with Marcia Foster. She speaks on behalf of the legacy of her parents who are no longer here, her brothers who are not in the room as we speak. But for nearly 90 years, the Foster family has impacted every part of life in Plainville. As you all go on to different chapters in your life, we pray that you have the success that you invest in. And we pray that you never forget that Plainville is your hometown, and the door will always be open for whatever it is you guys want to celebrate. Thank you for being a part of Plainville Cardinal TV. We can all make a difference in the world.